So let's start with that breaking news developing within just the last few hours. The United States has intercepted and seized a sanctioned oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, a large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening.
So it's the latest and most dramatic escalation yet from the White House, which has spent months tightening the screws on Nicolas Maduro, accusing the Venezuelan leader of running a state-backed narco-trafficking empire right under America's nose. It also comes just days after President Trump openly suggested that the US could take action on Venezuelan soil. But the Maduro regime insists that this is all part of a US plot to topple him, accusing America of trying to engineer a removal. Let's talk to my panel about this evening. I'm delighted to say that I am joined by former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and Ashley Brassfield, reporter for The Daily Caller. Thank you both so much for coming in. Niall, for those people who think they've got deja vu, you were here last night. We were on air for about 5 minutes, and then President Trump spoke for an hour and 50 minutes. So we thought we'd have you back.
Relatively short speech by the President.
It really was. So thank you for coming back in. We're interested to hear what you've got to say. But Ashley, let me start with you as our American. Why is this situation in Venezuela relevant? We were talking off air, weren't we, about the fact that it can feel, we know this is important, it can feel like it's certainly a long way from the UK, and it might feel quite a long way from Americans as well, but what's happening here?
Yeah, I think this does hit a little closer to home, unlike conflicts in the Middle East that we've seen over the past 20 years. But in this case, we've seen a huge focus on the narco terrorists from the administration, and now we have a situation with a cargo ship being seized. It has not been revealed yet who owns that cargo ship at this point. They have not revealed that yet, and I think the president didn't even give a reason for the seizure at this point. But I do think there is questions that a lot of journalists are continuing to ask about our involvement with Venezuela particularly having tons of oil. I think that's an interest to the entire world and the market itself. But just a lot of questions here regarding narco terrorists, regarding Nicolas Maduro, the communist leader of the country, and whether he will be in control. And I think President Trump has had many conversations, and they're continuing to have a plan going forward, saying, he's not going to last very long in the country.
This video is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect yourself this Christmas with one of the best VPNs out there. Cybercriminals are out to get your bank account information while you do your Christmas shopping online. But you can protect your privacy, money, and identity now with ExpressVPN for as little as 8 pence a day. Click the link now to claim up to 75% off.
And of course, Niall, it appeared that these strikes on these Venezuelan drug trafficking boats were precisely that. It was clamping down on narco-terrorism. This is not that. So what is happening here? These pictures that we're watching here of America seizing this boat, is this a proxy war on China?
Yeah, so this is really about sanctions busting, really, because the Venezuelan regime, of course, is illegally exporting oil, and it ends up in China. And so the United States basically is enforcing the sanctions that are in place. This is a very impressive military operation. It's American exceptionalism writ large here, and 3 cheers to President Trump, I think, for launching this kind of raid. We can't imagine, for example, Keir Starmer doing something like this.
No.
And so this is the United States, the world superpower, flexing its muscles on the world stage against a vicious, brutal communist tyrant. And that's a great thing to see, the United States actually taking action here. The United States really is standing up, I think, to one of the most odious regimes on the face of the earth. And if Maduro actually ends up being thrown out of office as a result of US action, great. He's a dictator and a tyrant. And I think the Venezuelan people will be glad to see the back of Maduro.
But when you say that they're illegally selling oil to China, illegal on what basis?
Well, so Venezuela is actually acting in conjunction with the Iranian regime. And so this actually goes around sanctions that are in place against Iran.
Right.
The oil ends up actually in China. And so it generates money for the Iranian regime. So this is really at the heart of what this is all about.
Okay, so there's always something going on behind the scenes, really, isn't it? So nothing is ever as it appears, actually. Yes. Exactly. But will American people be comfortable with President Trump doing this? You know, should he be trying to enact regime change in Venezuela?
Yeah, I think that's the question. I think a lot of Generation Z who, you know, we've heard America First across the board, and I think there is a separation with MAGA and America First, and there's a definition, kind of war going on within the conservative movement about what that actually is. You know, what interest we have in obtaining oil from that country, going in, destroying narco-terrorists. There is questions, I think, around the narco-terrorists itself. But to answer the question, I think, you know, there is questions. I think the American people need some answers on this raid and what problems, I guess, it faces domestically. I think the narco-terrorist aspect, people see that. Thousands of people being killed due to fentanyl overdoses across the country. I know in the past that cocaine's been a major drug. Of course, that can be laced with fentanyl. A lot of it's originating from places like Colombia, is what they're alleging, which also has a Chinese influence here, as well as the oil aspect.
Well, let's have a look. In the last few moments, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has said the US executed a seizure warrant for a crude oil tanker used to transport sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran. For multiple years, the oil tanker has been sanctioned by the United States due to its involvement in an illicit oil shipping network supporting foreign terrorist organisations. So it's an issue, therefore, of national security. This is intelligence.
Absolutely. I mean, this is vital. And of course, the Iranian regime is the world's biggest state sponsor of terror. And so Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, China, I mean, they're all part of a broader axis of totalitarian nations, actually. And so it's right that the United States is taking this kind of action. This is American leadership on the world stage, where no one else in the world actually does anything at all. And I'm grateful to see this kind of leadership. I think most American people will support the action being taken by the president. They don't want to see a weak-kneed leader like Joe Biden or Obama bowing to dictators and tyrants. Actually, this is real strength and leadership, and we need to see more of this, actually.
Is this going to ramp up, Ashley, do you think? I know it's a bit of a difficult question to answer at this time, but what happens next?
I think this alone was a ramp up in a lot of ways. You know, the drone strikes on terrorists, for one thing. This is a new, of course, from what we saw today, and it's a developing story, of course. But I do think we're going to see it ramp up. I mean, I think there's been a little bit of warning signs from the president in recent days and things he said in interviews. And, you know, he's kind of had some discretion what he's been able to say and not say regarding talks with Maduro himself. But, I mean, we have here, you know, he was very focused on energy. I think opening the markets to a place like Venezuela that's been closed off in the oil industry for many years is one thing. But even in the Caribbean islands, which has a massive former British influence, I think is another aspect of this that is going to be impacted in a lot of ways.
Okay, super. Let me know what you think at home. GBnews.com/your say. Would you like to see our government taking such drastic action? I'm not sure what the equivalent would be, Niall. I don't know what the equivalent would be.
Taking action against the French.
Taking action against the French. Yeah, dealing with the dinghies. We can't even deal with the dinghies. Look what he can deal with.
Yes,
right.
Actually.
Moving on.